Hey, what's up? I haven't seen you guys in a while. Been dealing with some stuff on my end, but I wanted to come say hi and that we're coming back. I got a new microphone, as you can see. I got slightly a new setup as behind me, and generally was trying to make things a little bit easier for me to record. If anybody can help me out with this microphone, I got a really nice one, as you can see, but it sounds a little tinny to me. Uh, if you got any audio engineers out there that can give me some assistance, I would love to hear it. Or maybe that's just my voice, and that's unfortunately what I have to deal with. I have for the last 8 months now, six to 8 months now, been teaching and learning jujitsu in a completely different way. And that's kind of why I haven't been here. About, I guess, back in August or September, Jeff, the owner of the gym that I work at, and I stumbled upon Greg Souders and his message, if you will, about ecological dynamics and ecological jujitsu and a new and I guess not new technically, but for jujitsu purposes, new for us way to learn and to teach that is founded in science and just better, to be quite honest. And I jumped in head first, and as did Jeff and everybody else at the gym. And it was great to have a network of people trying this out. And after doing it for just a little bit, it was pretty obvious really quickly that I didn't understand jujitsu to the level that I wanted to. The teaching side of it came somewhat more naturally, but I have a leg up on a lot of people in this space. I have a master's in special education. I've taught for almost 2 decades in a school, 8 hours a day at minimum with kids. Lots of different kids, thousands of kids at this point. So my ability to translate and learn a new teaching methodology wasn't as difficult, but it became very apparent once I had that down. What is jujitsu? What matters? And I'm still figuring that out. I'm not saying that I know, but I think it's a lot simpler than I originally thought. So I've learned a lot. I've been developing games based on my understanding of jiu-jitsu. I had an opportunity to go down to Greg's gym in December at Standard Jiu-Jitsu in Rockville, Maryland. It was a treat. Greg's an amazing person, super kind, spent hours talking with me, and I really appreciated that. And his guys were fantastic. I trained in almost every single class throughout the week. I took one class off, which was one of the competition classes at night, just because my body was starting to fall apart, and Greg could see that. And he was like, "Hey, just you're here to get an education on education. Take a break, watch the class." And it was perfect because it let my body recover so I could take literally every other class that week. So I only missed one. And I got to watch those guys train and what they do. It was amazing. I learned so much that week about jujitsu, about teaching, about intention, about getting just better at something. I learned more about jujitsu that week than I would argue I learned the rest of the time that I've been training, which is insane because I've been, coming up on 15 years in 1 week. So it was a great experience. I learned a lot. And that made me rethink, what am I doing here at Stop Talk and Roll? At first, I felt like a fraud. And I'm sure many of us have at some point, especially when we get new belts or any aspect of life. And I thought, well, what business do I have making these videos? And as I did this more and more, and I taught more, and I delved into jiu-jitsu more, I started understanding it at a more basic, simpler level, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. Fundamental, foundational level. And I still have a long way to go. But I realized that the game is getting more simple. It's getting simpler day by day as I practice trying to understand what I'm doing. What is it that we're doing? What does an underhook do for you? What are we trying to do at all? What is the game of jiu-jitsu? And so that has been my focus. I have the the whole, not the whole idea, but a major component of ecological jiu-jitsu and learning in this manner. If you haven't seen it before, I'm sorry, I'm just assuming you have, and I'll do another video another day, but you can go look up, go listen to one of Greg's interviews. A podcast that he's on, he talks about it. He explains it really well every single time. But a big part of it is that there is everything needs to be live. Everything you do needs to be get a live, resisting opponent, because that's when you learn. You don't learn by practicing against someone who isn't moving or is a limp noodle or is just not giving you any resistance, because you don't learn what you need to do on your end. You don't learn by doing a step-by-step procedure, because if you learn step by step and you see your opportunity in a live match, that moment is fleeting and then it's gone. Because, and this is the hard thing to get, and I get people get really upset about it, but there's like an infinite amount of degrees to which grappling can happen. And so the way you practiced it over and over and over again is never going to exist exactly the same again. And so for you to waste your time on that, it's hard for me to watch. And the reason I come to make this video today is I was teaching this morning. I was teaching no-gi, and we had an old member come and train with us. I'm not going to name names. I know for a fact that this person doesn't care that I'm talking about them, but I also want to pay respect to them and where they train now, which is nowhere near us. They moved away somewhere else, and they've kept up with their training. They kept training jiu-jitsu, and they're training at a very, very high level facility. And I would ask you, obviously, I'm not naming names, but trust me. I'm saying that this is a high level facility. The owner and head instructor is highly regarded in the jiu-jitsu community. This person has medaled at ADCC and is regarded as a very, very technically sound person. The member that came and visited today, he looks great. He came back and had a plethora of leg locks. He really liked his ankle locks before he left, and you could tell that he developed that a lot. He seemed a lot more confident. He seemed a lot more knowledgeable of what was happening in jiu-jitsu, which is great. I'm not surprised. He's a very athletic person, very talented. He's a white belt, but I forget how long he's been training. I don't want to give any disrespect, but I want to say it's less than a year. Either way, it's not a long amount of time, and he's obviously grown. He participated in class today, and I run a games-led, a constraint-led approach class, and he participated in both the fundamental class that we have and the mixed level class. Long story short, had a good time, had some questions as we went through about like what he should be doing, what he shouldn't, and all good. And at the very end, he wanted to roll. He wanted to do a round with me real quick. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So we do a 6-minute round, and we start from the feet, and he kept doing something really strange. I wasn't quite sure what he was doing, but what was happening is that I don't have footage of it. I'd gladly put the footage up if I had it. But what he kept doing was allowing me, right? So not with resistance. I was getting to these positions, but I could tell he also wasn't really defending them. But he continually allowed me to get behind him with my arms clasped under his armpits, right around his waist. So essentially what we would call a body lock, but I had access to his hips and I was below his arms. So I have access to his torso, which made it possible for me to manipulate him and move him around. And this happened several times, which was confusing to me because he's an athletic individual and I know that he can adapt and change what he's doing relations to what I'm doing. So I keep getting here, and he keeps giving me avenues to this position to get here. And I utilize it to take him down. And the first time I take him down, take his back, and I get him with a rear naked choke. And the second round, I take him down, get on top of him, finish with a head and arm choke. Third round, I take him down, I get him down. He's teetering. He doesn't want to give up the back or the or he doesn't want me to pin him either way, right? Like I can either pin him by putting his shoulders on the floor or pin him with my chest to his back, right? Covered shoulders is a pin in jiu-jitsu. And so he was leaning on his side and I just saw a free arm. I grabbed it, pulled it behind his back. I isolated his arm. So now it's behind his body. He can't assist it in any way. And bring him right back down, drive up hard. I believe I finished with like a cross-side armbar or Americana or something, right? And so the round keeps going, and I keep getting to these body lock positions, and I keep taking him down in various different ways, and I'm just flowing and making sure that I have inside control and breaking him down and getting him to the floor. Not really thinking technical anymore. That's one of the I'll talk about it another time, but one of the bonuses of training like this is you're not thinking about techniques anymore. You're thinking about control. Immobilization as it leads to isolation. It's a different way of training, and it's cool. It's freeing in a way. But anyways, we finished. We roll for 6 minutes. We finished the round. The kids' class is starting in 10 minutes, so we should already be getting off the mat. But he's also visiting. He doesn't come that often, so I wanted to give him a round. He asked for a round. I want to give him a round. And I asked him, I said, hey, why was that happening? Why did that keep happening? And he goes, we've been working from that position for the last 2 months on how to deal with someone when they get a body lock on us from behind. And I said, okay, well, what were you waiting for me to do? And he showed me the like 2 or 3 things that they had been working on defending for the last several months. Now, this is his words. I don't want to, maybe this wasn't the reality of the situation, but I have no reason not to believe him. So this isn't like a truth or not truth thing. But he showed me what he had been working on. I mean, he showed me like a technical, like, okay, so someone's going to step over to the side and lift them up. I'm like, okay, that's reasonable. And then he showed me what happens when somebody goes to take the back, which is kind of like what I was doing, but not exactly like him. And again, this individual is very smart. He knows what he's doing. He's athletic and he's reflective. And so I asked him, did I do any of those things at any point? And he said, well, you took my back. I was like, okay, but do you recall, were they ever the same thing twice? Did I ever do anything exactly the same twice? No. The answer was no, and he knew that. I didn't have to convince him. He knew that it was different every time, and I can tell you it was different every time because I wasn't really paying attention to the specifics of what I was doing. I just knew I was collapsing his legs down because I was gaining inside control and take him over in various different ways and jump on his back or get him to a hip and look for a chest-to-chest connection, whatever it may be. And then I thought to myself, after we finish that and we go home and I have some breakfast and whatnot, and I was thinking about that conversation, and I was thinking about the path that we have taken the last 6 months, the path that I've taken about trying to get better at being a better coach, being a better educator, being better at jiu-jitsu, being able to communicate what it is that we do more efficiently, more purposefully, more intentionally. And I got to thinking, well, he spent a few months working on that, and I'm not saying that it was a waste of his time, but I didn't spend any time on that position, yet I was able to take him down consistently. Now, I get that there is a skilled gap here, but I would say athletically, he is better than me. I would say size-wise, I have a few pounds on him, not much, kind of negligible given the height. Not it's a thing. I'll give him that. But he's a strong dude. And I thought back, well, what have we been doing? And I know that I've structured in my classes, depending on the class you take, I teach a fundamentals course and I teach a mixed levels course. And so I thought, well, let me look at both of those. What have we been doing? In the fundamentals course, we get in 5 to 6 6-minute rounds in every class with a of constraints led games, and then an extra rounds to finish out the class, whatever that may be. That time includes instruction around what we're trying to do as grapplers, using jiu-jitsu as our philosophy, and how to approach that, right? Talking about what is it that we're working on? What is it that we're trying to do in jiu-jitsu? And Greg explains it really well. But basically, and I'm probably butchering this, so please don't eviscerate me in the comments, but my understanding, and this is Greg's framework, and I'm probably butchering it for a second time I'm saying this. Please, I'm working on it and I'm getting better. But I think that his framework is a really good explanation of what we do, which is jiu-jitsu is the game of bypassing periphery to get to center mass in order to take someone down, in order to immobilize them, as it leads to isolation of limbs, so our legs, arms, and head, in extreme states of extension or contraction, in order to bend, twist, or strangle. Now, I think destabilization is in there as a word, and I know what that means. You need to have the definition of all these words. What is immobilization? What is isolation? What is extension and contraction? And what is destabilization? This is really important to understand. But every class is focused on that. The connections that we make, the structures that lead, and the movement we do to have those all tied together. Connection, structure, and movement is part of that. The mixed level class, same thing, a little bit more intense. 5-10 minute rounds of constraints. And I've broken them down to all of the parts of jiu-jitsu, all of the games, or all of the major sections of jiu-jitsu. We do a standing game, we do a guarded situation, we do a chest-to-chest situation, a chest-to-back situation. We also, because our gym is relatively new at them, I also include an extra guarded situation, but specifically around leg entanglements. That is technically a guarded situation, but I like to do, again, one extra just to help bolster up all of us because we're newer at that. So 2 guarded situations, a standing engagement, a chest-to-chest, and a chest-to-back engagement. That's 5-10 minute games. That's 50 minutes of live training, right? And I'm not going to go and sit here and do math. You can gauge how much that is. Or you can do the math yourself if you want. So my friend came to visit, and during our 6-minute round, we got into the position that he had been working on for months, and at no point did I give him the response or the technique or the movement that he had practiced for. So then what are we practicing for? What's the point? If I just don't do what you want me to do, then you don't have a response. This is, again, not an attack to my student. It's more a question to all of you, and this is what I've been grappling with, so you can understand why I haven't been putting out the videos as much and why I think I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to start doing them again, is what are we doing? How are we trying to get better at this sport, or anything for that matter? Are we spending months, and I've used to do this, I used to teach units for 3 or 4 months. I used to be proud of it on singular things, and I would deep dive, and I would study, and I would practice it and I would do it myself and then I would bring it to my students. I'm not saying that I get where it's coming from, but seeing the difference now is incredible. Seeing the progress that newer people are making and seeing the progress that our higher belts are making it's hard to justify not training like this. If you're new, let me rephrase that. If you are a teacher, a coach, a professor, whatever you want to call yourself, and you want to try this approach, I think that there is a lot of information out there for you to look at. And again, I keep saying I'll do this, and I will. There is a lot of great information out there. I would start very simply with some podcasts. You don't have to read just yet, but listen to like 1 or 2 podcasts that Greg Souders is in. Honestly, the guy is giving out so much good information. It's incredible. Now, if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, this guy's just, I don't know. I'm making you slightly start to rage because I'm just saying his name because he is a polarizing individual. I'm sorry. It's not my intention. But if you are a coach that wants to try this, I think the only way to truly do this is to buy in completely and give yourself 2 months. Do not teach technique. Play these games and understand the function of what we do. What is the movement's function or the connection's function? What is the purpose, as I said earlier, of an underhook? What is the purpose of head and arm connection? What do these things lead to? Why do we want them? Do it for 2 months, because what we saw at our gym is the first month and a half for players that were 6 months to 2 years of jiu-jitsu, they struggled. They wanted to know the answer. They wanted to know why we weren't doing the other way. And it was interesting. Jeff made this point, which was up until then, no one ever questioned a single thing we did. But suddenly, everything got a little harder for a little bit, and everyone started questioning. And it was interesting. And at about a month and a half, about 6 weeks in, stopped. No more questioning. And people started making comments and saying that they really liked the new style. They were having more fun, which is critical to learning, if you weren't aware of this. I'm not being facetious here. Having fun is critical to learning. They were getting better. And they were understanding what they were doing. And we were not teaching a single technique. I stopped teaching technique, just cold turkey, in both games and in private instruction. So private lessons also turned into games, constraints-led approach. Do that. Just like the students and improving at jiu-jitsu need to do live training to get better, you as a coach need to teach live. You need to be in there and just go for it. And it's okay if you make mistakes. It's what we do. You make mistakes in jiu-jitsu. You have to tap out. I played a game today. It went really bad. All right? The game itself, the constraints itself were fine, but it was too convoluted and it just didn't work. I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix it. And then I'll probably do it again, and it'll probably suck 1 or 2 more times, but I know that the lesson that's being taught, which is holding someone down, very simple concept, hard to do sometimes, but a simple thing, holding someone down in a chest to back situation in that variation of the game, it's a good game. I just need to figure out the rules a little bit more, make it a little less complicated, a little bit more intuitive, and then it will lead to skill development. You have to do that. You have to be willing to make the mistakes, and it's okay. The other thing I would say is for those of you that are on the fence or even against this style of training, I have heard different reasons why, but a common one that I was a little confusing is this is from several high-level black belts that I regard very highly. Little older now, but not that old. A little bit past their competitive prime, competitive black belts. Their reasoning for not doing this training is that they claim that one of their blue or purple belts went and visited a gym that does ecological and they mauled everybody on the mats. It's a weird reason to not train ecological. That argument is very easily debunked, right? Like, are they teaching well over there? What's the makeup of the gym? Is your guy a competitor? It doesn't mean that you can't have good jiu-jitsu if you don't do ecological, obviously, right? Like, the majority of gyms don't do that process. Doesn't mean you didn't learn through live training, but that's just a weird reason not to do it. The other side of this is new people. New people don't know any better, right? Someone day one comes in, they are much more honed in and productive from the start than in the old style of teaching techniques. It's just, I'm going to say that with definitive as a fact because I've seen it with a ton of people over the last 8 months, 6 months, whatever I've been doing. It's not a long time. Those guys get better so much faster and they're in class and they're already able to just jump right in with everybody in the room because the constraints are so simple and they're so straightforward and they teach what we're trying to do in jiu-jitsu. They're teaching immobilization and isolation and destabilization. It's what we're trying to do. And then obviously as it leads to getting submissions. I'm going on talking a lot here. And if you're still watching, thank you. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think about this. I'm not trying to cause any problems. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I am an educator at heart. And I want to see us elevate jiu-jitsu because what's the saying? Rising tides raise all ships, right? Like if we all get better at this coaching and the skill of jiu-jitsu, the skill of grappling, I should say, the skill of grappling, we all get better, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. I'll be back. Stop, Talk, and Roll will return. Please submit some rounds. I'd love to break them down. Check out the description below on how you can reach out to me. I have an email there. You can reach out to me via Instagram or other social medias. Instagram is probably the best or the one I check most often. And have a great day. Bye.